What is up, everybody? This is Chase, and welcome back to the Wellness Center podcast, where we are destigmatizing mental health one episode at a time. Everyone, I am so grateful that you are tuning in again to not only witness another amazing story of resilience and power and vulnerability, but to support the Wellness Center tribe. Guys, it means the world to me. I'm so grateful for you, for your continued support, for the growth in the channel, and all of the avenues in which that's happening. So I'm so grateful for each and every one of you. Guys, I'm doing really good myself personally. Here in Utah, we're kind of getting into that fall season. Me and the guest that we have on today, we're kind of talking about it. Absolute perfect time of year. You get the cold at the night, so you get to sleep good, but it's nice and warm through the day, so you get to enjoy all of the beautiful nature and all of the colors and the changing of the falls and the leaves. Guys, if you've never been to Utah, highly recommend it. Been here my whole life. But guys, no, I'm doing really good. Guys, really excited for my conversation today for two reasons. One, I feel like I need this guy in my life personally, just because I don't believe in coincidences. He reached out to me. And two, he's a local here in Utah, and I love interviewing locals because, there's so much we're going to be able to empathize on. There's so much we're going to be able to learn from him. And, there's just so much fruit that he's going to offer us. And I'm really excited to have this guy on today. Guys, before I go into my epic introduction and bring my guest on, I have a couple of favors I would absolutely love to ask of you. So the first is, if you're not a part of the Wellness Center tribe, if you're on YouTube, please make sure to click on that subscribe button, click on that notification button so you can get updated on all of the new episodes that we release every single Friday. Guys, I want to give you the skills. I want to give you the stories. I want to give you the hope to cope through the weekend. So please make sure to hit that subscribe button, guys. If you're on Apple or Spotify or any other podcasting platform, please make sure to hit that follow button. Please make sure to hit that download button. So again, you guys can get updated on all the awesome episodes. It would mean the world to me, means the world to my guests. And all we're trying to do is help people out. The show will always remain free, so don't worry about that whatsoever. I'm always looking to destigmatize mental health and help people have a little bit of hope. Guys, so that's my first big request from you is please join the tribe. My second big request, guys, my second huge favor that I have of you is, guys, as you're listening to this episode today, as you're listening to this amazing man speak his truth, speak his power, speak his story, I invite you to think of someone in your life that you know could empathize with this story, that you know could resonate with this man, and that could use the skills and lessons that he's going to teach today. And I invite you to share this episode with that friend, not only to give them this resource to help them out, but also just to give them that little bit of love and connection that everyone wants and everyone deserves in this world. Okay, guys, so those are my two big favors of you. Join the tribe. Please share the episode. So guys, without further ado, I am so excited. I want to bring on my phenomenal guest today. So guys, my guest, by way of introduction, he is a former world champion jockey turned top-rank financial advisor. He is the author of a new book, From the Starting Gate, A Guide to Achieving Wealth, Health, and Happiness. He's also an author of two additional books, Harnessing Your Wealth and The Pursuit of Millionaire Status. He shares strategies for creating prosperity and achieving financial independence. He's an advocate for mindset shifts to promote health, well-being, and overcoming past traumas. He believes health is influenced by the choices, not just DNA, and encourages belief in the power of healing. And he provides motivational stories and practical tools to help readers manifest miracles and sustain success. So guys, of course, this is going to be a once in a lifetime opportunity to listen to one of the top people in the industry. So without further ado, we have the one and the only Billy Peterson on the show. Billy, how are you doing today?
Hear the legends, old and new. Wisdom flow like rivers true. Share your heart, the stories thrive. In this cast we're all alive. Oh.
Chase, I am great. Thank you so much for having me and agreeing. I guess I reached out and I know we in my office had looked at your show and thought, this guy's taking these this information and he's applying it and it's making a difference. And I just wanted to be a part of that and share my story with you and your listeners. So thanks for having me on.
Billy, I really appreciate you coming on my show as well. Most of the time, not a lot of people actually reach out like call me to try and come on the show. So it's always really special when someone takes that extra little step. So that just speaks to like your ability, your hustle, your mindset, right? That just that extra little bit of value that you provide people. So it's really cool. And I'm really excited to have you on and thank you also for the compliment. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. So, Billy, bro, just so we can all get to know you a little bit better, could you share some of like some cookie cutter answers as to who you are and what you like to do?
You bet. Well, I born and raised here in Utah, a small town called Morgan, northern Utah, and grew up on a farm. I've always been a farm boy, rancher, farmer, been around
Hmm.
horses my whole life. And I was small, and I'll get into that if you'd like, but the reason I stayed small was more of a deficiency that I had when I was young, and it's a bone related genetic deficiency where my legs bowed severely as a young
Mm.
child, and so I was put in cast. Actually, I was sent in for surgery when I was 3 years old, and they cut my femurs and stapled them back together. So rotated, cut the growth plates. I didn't have a lot of opportunity to grow. I mean, my whole family is pretty tall,
Hmm.
but it kept me small. And
Gotcha.
in in that perspective in life, I had to make a choice. And what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
And I chose to become a jockey. It was one of those things that was kind of available to me. And I became a jockey and decided, I want to be good at this. And I
Hmm.
rode racehorses all over the country.
Wow.
From started out here in just a little old Laurel Brown racetrack at Salt Lake. Rode at Dixie Downs. There used to be a track down there. St. George, it was pretty hustle and it was very popular. And Wyoming Downs, of course, is still running. But then I moved on to the bigger tracks, racetracks at Sunland Park and Remington Park, which is in Oklahoma, and then ultimately to Santa Anita and Del Mar and what was once Hollywood Park,
Hmm.
Los Alamitos. So some of the bigger tracks across the Western United States. From there, I decided, I've had enough of this. A lot of injuries, accidents,
Hmm.
and starving myself to death to make the weight,
Hmm.
and decided to pursue a career in what I also had a passion for, which was investing. And I started to help other people in the horse racing industry
Hmm.
and became a financial advisor in 1996. So
That's
yeah, I've
cool.
been doing this a long time. I've owned my own business here since 2009
Hmm.
and right here locally. And we manage about $450 million for clients across the country.
That's
So built up a
incredible.
pretty successful business doing this. But I think the most rewarding thing I've ever done, to be honest, is learn how the power of the mind
Hmm.
can heal the body.
Yes.
And that's what I spent a lot of time. I suffered for years in chronic pain, had a
Hmm.
lot of different diseases you'd call, they were labeled as diseases for me,
Hmm.
and found the path and found the correct avenue, if you will, to heal from every one of them. And so I decided I needed to share that. In my first book, I talked a lot about just the financial end and investing and how to become a successful investor and just set yourself up for financial freedom. And
Hmm.
but this book, this most recent book, talks a lot. I spend a whole section, part of it in health and what I learned and how I overcame and the things that most of us don't understand in our society today, and we completely brush them off as if they're not relevant because we've been programmed and led to believe that we are required to rely on pharmaceuticals and surgeries, and we're all going to break down at some point. We're all going to end up on prescription drugs, and it's just a way of life.
Right. And that doesn't have to be true. Right. And it's, yeah, that's cool, man. I love that you're pursuing these areas of your life. Talk about some resiliency there, right? And there's so much to unpack. So thank you. So I'm curious about the farm that you grew up on. You're around, I know you said you're around horses a lot. What kind of livestock did you farm?
Well, I always gravitated to the horses. I like the
Okay.
horses, but my dad has owned a mink farm for, oh my gosh, 60 years or so up in Morgan.
Wow. Okay.
So he does that kind of work.
So mink
Uh,
farm, is a mink just like a type of cat?
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, more like a kind of a cross between a weasel and a ferret, just a small, that's what they make mink coats and hats and scarves and all those things.
Gotcha.
Morgan actually is very prominent for mink farmers. It's perfect weather, the climate. They really do well there.
That's really
So
unique.
he has them. He takes really good care of them, and that's just he's what he's been in for his whole life. He doesn't know anything different. My dad, all he knows is work, 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 work.
It sounds a lot like my dad. I grew up on a small, I call it a hobby farm more than an actual farm, right? You had the chickens and and the horses and the rabbits and all the things that you tended to, but it wasn't any big, big thing like a mink farm. That I did not know that Morgan was a mink farm town.
Community, yeah,
That's
yeah,
super.
tons of them. And there used to be a lot more. I mean, a lot of them have had to close up shop because the prices have just fallen off. I mean, it's really
Yeah,
sad to see these guys just kind of, I don't know, fade away. That the businesses they had thrived in for many years has gone by the wayside. And you see it. I mean, styles come in and out of favor. And now they can make synthetic coats that look a lot like a mink, but they're fake.
right.
But people have kind of gravitated to that, and for a lot of reasons, I guess. But
Yeah.
so yeah, it's kind of gone by the wayside. But horse racing still strong,
Yeah, horses.
still alive and kicking.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure we could spend a whole episode talking about like farmers and the whole industrial breakdown of that, but I know that's not the topic here. So, okay. And with your legs, you had a bone disease, is what it was?
Yeah, it's referred to as rickets. So it's called
Rickets. Okay.
hypophosphatemic rickets, and it's essentially a deficiency in phosphorus and calcium
Gotcha.
in
So your
the
bones were
bones.
weak.
The bones are weak. So as soon as
Okay.
you get up to walking age, about 2 years old or so,
Hmm.
you're kind of putting weight on your legs, and they just flare. And my legs, and you'll see pictures if anybody makes a decision to buy my book. You'll see pictures of what I look like. It's quite staggering what my legs look like when I was 2 and 3 years old.
Gotcha.
But they
Oh,
didn't know how to fix it. And nowadays, this is a medical advancement without surgery, is learning that you can correct those things with the vitamins and supplements that you need, to
just helping your body
clear that
produce
up.
the extra
Right,
calcium and phosphorus. That's
right.
that's really cool. So maybe to help me and the viewers understand a little bit, Forrest Gump, I know you probably have heard that reference more
Oh
times
yeah.
than you can count. Was it similar to kind of his
Yeah, I mean,
thing?
I guess you look at that and how he was in those casts,
Hmm.
braces and whatnot. Mine was even more severe, I would say. I had
Gotcha.
body casts as a 3 year old that came up to my right top of my chest,
Gotcha.
and and then a bar holding my legs to where I couldn't move them.
Yeah.
So they just laid me on my back, and then when I get uncomfortable there for a while, they'd roll me on my belly, and that's how I spent six
Gotcha.
to 9 months of my life
Ah,
in the hospital, come home for a few months, and then,
yeah.
but the surgeries didn't end on that one. There were a number of repeat surgeries, follow up
Hmm.
surgeries, and it was a struggle for quite a while.
Yeah.
I think the big traumatic experience from that was being left there at the hospital. It was at the
Yeah.
Shriners Hospital because my parents didn't have money to pay
Mink
for that type
farmers.
of
Yeah.
thing,
Farmers are busy
insurance.
people.
So it was just I was at the Shriners, and I was at the Shriners for 3 months at the
Ah,
age 3, and not sure why I had been left there. And I still have these horrific images in my mind of some of the kids that were in that ward. It put us all in a ward together. It wasn't like we had
yeah.
private room. You're just in this big open room with all these other children who had been severely burned, who had lost their arms in an accident, who maybe lost a leg by electrocution. Um, I still have those visions and images in my mind. It's hard to imagine what some kids have to go through,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. And I think this conversation segues perfectly into my first question and my first main question. So I'd love to dive into that. So, Billy, kind of looking at kind of that situation, right? That big traumatic experience for you. Um, how, kind of like looking back with 2020 hindsight, I would love for you to kind of tell us a little bit about how you struggled with your mental health, some of those early signs.
Well, interesting. I always thought mental health was such a stigma, such a negative term, that
Yeah.
it was only something that you would designate someone who has like mental problems, like they need to be put in an asylum or something.
Right.
You're strange, you're weird, you're different. But as I've gone through this healing journey, I'll call it,
Hmm.
I learned that mental health is just another way to say, are you paying attention to the thoughts you have, to the mind, to what's in your,
Mm.
maybe even your subconscious mind? Have you allowed some of those emotions that have been trapped and buried and repressed
Yeah.
to come forth, to come out, to actually process them and understand how your life has transpired and how those situations or events shaped you as a person?
Yeah.
And there was a great book written not too long ago by an author named Nadine Burke Harris.
Hmm.
And she wrote about what she called ACEs. That stands for Adverse Childhood Experiences.
Hmm.
And it was a real enlightening book for me to stop and consider as I was reading this. And she
Yeah.
did many studies. She's a doctor. She's very renowned in California.
Do you remember
She
the
was
name of the book?
it's called I'm gonna get it for you in a minute. I will get it for you. I
No
know it.
worries.
I talk
Okay.
about it a lot. I'm gonna look it right now while I'm talking. But she talked about these ACEs and she did a major study on why uh, some children have adverse health conditions later in life.
Okay.
And it's alarming how directly related they are
Hmm.
to these experiences. So she looked at them as if we all have kind of trauma in our life,
Right.
but what how often people's trauma was directly correlated to these findings. So
Okay.
things like cancer, even things like um, diabetes, all these major conditions, and then suicide, uh,
Hmm.
congenitive heart failure, all these things come up that she was able to explain in her book, and it made a ton of sense to me.
That's
I'm
cool.
I'm gonna get that information for you.
Yeah. Awesome. So I'm curious, how did that traumatic experience you had in the hospital at 3, how did that kind of unfold in your life at that young age, right? What was life kind of like after that experience for you?
Well, as a kid, you don't really know what you don't know, so you just live your life. You think that's
Hmm.
what it is. You're normal, or that was a normal situation. You just had to deal with it. But
Hmm.
the ridicule from other kids, that was hurtful
Yeah.
because my legs were never like other kids. I was short. I still walk bowed, with bowed legs.
Yeah.
They didn't correct them perfectly, and then I
Right.
ended up having the feet turn in, so I had pigeon-toed uh, problems. They had to
Hmm.
cut those and correct those too. And you get a lot of, I don't know, you get a lot of negative feelings because other people look at you funny. The
Yeah.
kids tease you. They're not afraid to even say what they think.
Hmm.
Even adults kind of try to label you as something as maybe just a little bit of a punchline almost. Bow-legged
Yeah.
Bill, here comes bow-legged Bill, and they don't know the kind of hurt that causes you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just something that stays with you. So
Yeah.
you kind of develop you almost want to put up a wall
Yeah.
because you don't want people to really know you or see you.
Yeah. And thank you for sharing that. I can see that that's still heavy on your heart, right? But I'm curious, what were some of the stories that you told yourself at those young ages as you were getting bullied, as those people were kind of creating those punchlines that kind of helped you, like, or that yeah, just some of those thoughts that you had about yourself at that young age.
Well, it made me, I think it had a lot to do with the type of personality I developed, which is more of an introvert. I
Yeah.
don't I don't do well just go in and mingle with crowds. I kind of do better just doing my own thing.
Yeah.
I have I avoid the big crowds and I like to be more isolated. And I I really get my guard up quickly when people are looking. I really have I don't know, a stigma of people just looking at me. I don't know
Yeah.
why I'm weird that way. I feel like people looking at me, they're judging me, they think I'm different or weird. And so,
It makes sense though, just hearing from you about your experience in childhood. It makes sense why you don't want people to look at you.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just hard. And I didn't understand it. I did not understand what I was going through
Yeah.
when I was young. They tried to explain it to me, and you just have to have this. This is what's going on. My grandfather had it, and it passed down from him.
Hmm.
It's an X-linked chromosome, so it passes from the male to the female, back to the male, back to the female. So he passed it to my mom.
Hmm.
My mom, this show she's a carrier of the condition, but the males are the only ones who display the condition, which is really strange. The males display the condition, so I have several cousins, male
Hmm.
cousins, who have the same condition
Gotcha.
and who had to go through surgeries, and many, they display the same characteristics that I do.
Yeah. Do you feel like that made you really close with those cousins that had those characteristics? Kind of like a
A little bit, but they, they were one was much older than me, so I didn't get to
yeah.
really spend a lot of time. It would have been different, I think, if we were the same or so close to the same age.
Hmm.
And then others were much younger than me.
Okay.
It's still a concern in our family. Everyone
Yeah.
who is, having a boy and who has the mother who is a carrier is thinking about that.
That makes
What's
sense.
the situation? But now my daughter was a carrier. She kind of displayed that as a young, infant,
Hmm.
and we took her to a doctor who understood these conditions now, and he just mixed up a pretty potent combination of phosphorus and calcium,
Hmm.
and we gave her that once a day for a couple months,
Hmm.
and it was amazing to see her legs straighten right up.
That's amazing. And
Yep.
what that's awesome. So I'm curious, around what time in your childhood and growing up did the career of a jockey come into your purview, and how do you get into being a jockey?
My dad, my family, uncles, cousins, always had horses, always, and really did the racing for enjoyment, something to do for fun.
Yeah.
So horses, again, always in my life, and me having the small stature
Hmm.
allowed me to think about that. And I started to really just watching some of the other jockeys who were exercising my dad's horses, for example, or riding them races. I started to really become interested in it. And I'd watch the other jockeys as if they were gods. I mean, I would idolize them and just watch every move they were making and think,
Yeah.
man, I want to do that. I want to do that.
That's
I
cool.
thought that was such a cool thing.
Hmm.
I know some kids probably think, oh, race car drivers, or I want to drive
Race
dump
horses.
trucks, or,
Yeah.
so I want to get on the horses. So I think probably the time I was about 12 or 13,
Okay.
that, it was in my mind. And I don't know. I'm the type of guy that just I see something that I want and I just pursue it without hesitation and without restraint.
That's cool.
I that's just becomes me, and
Hmm.
um, I chose to do that, and I wanted to be good. I don't ever do anything just kind of halfway.
Right.
So I chose to do that, and there's a lot of struggles. I'm not going to sugarcoat thinking, telling people that it was so easy.
Yeah.
It was hard, and I had a lot of accidents. I broke my leg, my femur. I broke many bones. I had my teeth all knocked out. Um, Multiple situations where I think could have prevented me to move forward, or hey, given me an
Yeah.
opportunity to change direction. But I
S-
don't know. It never phased me. I never had the thought that I was going to be done.
Okay.
I wanted to do it.
Accidents in the world of a jockey. Is that just being thrown off the horse, getting trampled by horses? What are,
Yeah, the horses
yeah.
are so unpredictable, and you're riding. you're teaching these horses to be unpredictable almost because you're asking them to run, just straight up run, not really
Yeah.
be controlled, but to run as fast and as hard as they can and until the race is over.
Hmm.
And so they're not what you consider broke, easy to ride, easy to handle for one. Second, so many things can happen in a race from a horse stumbling to
Hmm.
even sometimes having a severe injury, breaking a bone,
Hmm.
um, clipping heels with another horse,
Gotcha.
flipping over in the gate. I've had all kinds of issues like that. Even
Gotcha.
even just acting up, and
Hmm.
trying to buck and throw you off, or become a little um, let's say incapable of being controlled,
Yeah,
uncontrollable.
that
They
makes
run
sense.
through a fence. They just take off, run away from you.
Gotcha.
Anything
Okay.
can happen.
Okay. And yeah, it's crazy. That's cool. I don't know much about the world of jockeys, so thanks for helping me and the listeners kind of get a good view of it. So I'm curious. So 12, 13 is when it was in your purview. You know you wanted to be a jockey. At what age did you become top of the world? One of the best?
24. I think
About
it was
24.
24. It was 1996. Yep, 24. So that
That's
year, that season, I won more money than any other quarter horse jockey in the country. I was number one in the country, which essentially is the world because quarter horse racing primarily exists right here. There's a little bit going on in Mexico and some in South America, but
nothing like
mostly right here.
America.
Yeah,
Okay.
nothing like here.
So best in the world. That is super cool, man. So 10 years. I think it's just really important to let that sit for a second that it took 10 years of dedicated, relentless, tireless work to become the
Yeah.
best in the world. Just proof that things take time. So once you were done jockeying, I'm actually curious through the process of being a jockey, right? That 14 to 24, 13 to 24 age. How did life shift for you, right? Like, I know you were bullied a lot, you said growing up. Did becoming a jockey and doing that stuff kind of help with your confidence? Did it change the way you viewed the world? Was it the same and that was just your escape?
100%, got to be really good. Got to be respected, let's say.
Yeah.
And not that I was ever lacking in confidence in doing what I did. I was a pretty good athlete when I was young. I mean, I played all the sports and I was not afraid. Football, smallest one on the field, but I would not back down from anyone. I played both sides. I played defense and offense
Hmm.
and basketball and baseball. So I like to do them all. But again, you're always kind of conscious of what am I looking like out there? And I
Yeah.
hated watching myself on video because it's just I was the different one,
Right.
I was different. So you have to kind of come to terms with that and get comfortable with it. But as a jockey, my star was shining and I was all of a sudden pretty big deal. In my high school there in Morgan, everybody knew and I was still in high school, but I was riding at Wyoming Downs and all my friends and even people that I associated with and people from town and community would see me and they would talk about me and there was articles written about me. And so it started to really make me feel like, hey, I have a belonging, I have worth, I have value, I'm doing something
Hmm.
special. And I think I found that and I wanted that. I wanted validation of who I was,
Right.
that my life mattered and that I wasn't just some castaway from
Yeah.
what I experienced as a kid.
No, that's really powerful. Thank you. And I just love that desire that you had, right? And I know we all as humans have it, is just to feel loved, to feel valued. So I think that honestly, that segues perfectly into my next question. And so I want to bring that in. So you want to be loved, you want to be valued. And typically, I know that a lot of people search for that externally, right? I do. I did through my wife. I did through addictions, all that kind of stuff, right? You did through your success, through the jockeying. I'm kind of putting words in your mouth. So please correct me if I'm wrong. But, and then life continues on. And you get to this point in your life where you realize that the external validation isn't actually like filling you, right? So you realize that there's this pivotal moment, right? So the hero's journey. And that's my next question, right? What was the extreme moment or the pivotal trial that made you realize or had that, oh, shoot moment? I need to start working on my mental health.
Mm.
Could you explain that? Can you take
Yeah,
us through your hero's
yeah,
journey?
I can try. That's a very deep and thorny question, but
Yeah.
it's a good one.
Thank you.
I I had so many experiences in my life, and as I kind of talked a little bit about wanting that validation and
Hmm.
always looking for it from others and wanting to be respected and always looking to feel good by what other people saw and
Yeah.
giving myself a reason to be okay. Just I was terrified of people not liking me, people disrespecting me, people running my name down or saying
Yeah.
anything negative. So those were my biggest fears in life. It wasn't about riding racehorses. I wasn't scared of any of that. I was
Hmm.
scared of, do I measure up?
Yeah.
And do people respect me? Or, so, or am I some sort of clown show? Um, how I finally came to the conclusion and realization that I don't need it from the outside world. I need it from the inner world. It took a lot of suffering and
Yeah.
trauma, additional trauma. But my wife, Heather, is the one who actually enlightened me to this stuff. She is very good at seeing people for who they really are and understanding what's under the hood and for really helping me become aware of what I am as a person and that I don't need to justify myself to anyone. And
Is she a therapist or anything like that, or
yeah,
just
she's a mind body coach.
okay, cool.
And so she helps people who are dealing with chronic pain, disease, who have been told basically there's no hope. She helps people overcome and actually get pain free. Her
That's cool.
business is called Pain Free for Good, just for your awareness. But
Yeah, we'll put that in the description as well for your wife. We'll
yeah,
do a
she's
quick
all
plug for
over
her.
on the social media stuff. But she helped me come to that realization.
Okay.
I was dealing with so much pain. I'd always been pushing myself, push, push, push. You have to succeed. So even in as a career, my career as a jockey, it was always, hey, I got to be the best. And then it became, I'm a financial advisor, but I have to be the best, and I have to be seen as smart and good at this and be
Hmm.
respected. I craved that, and
Yeah.
every moment I was awake, I'm thinking of what I need to do to accomplish that stuff. And I wasn't just doing it because I enjoyed it. I was doing it because I felt like I had to do it to earn respect from others. And I continued to push, push, and have these negative thoughts that flooded my mind almost on a constant basis. And they're subliminal. You don't really know they're there, but you're always
Hmm.
worried about not being successful. So you always
Right.
think, oh man, I'm not going to make it. I've got to meet this quota. I've got to bring in more clients. That person doesn't want to do business with me. My gosh, what do they think of me? What's wrong with me? And so you're always having these negative thoughts, and they overpower the positive thoughts. So in other words,
Yeah.
you could have a great conversation with somebody, have a new client open accounts with you, give you $1 million to manage for them, and I'm already thinking about the guy that decided he didn't want to give me 50,000, and I put more pressure on myself for that than I do reward from the guy that gave me 1 million. So
Mm.
I was never accepting the rewards. I was never congratulating myself or saying, you did good. Good job, Billy. What a day you had. I was always looking at what I didn't do and what I could have done better.
Hmm.
And that's a tough way to live. But I found that, and it was, again, this took a lot, and I'm skipping a whole bunch of things here,
It's okay.
but I found out, and this is through reading a lot of books and my wife kind of pushing me in this direction after I was dealing with chronic pain for 7 years and all sorts of diseases.
Hmm.
Reading a book called Healing Back Pain, first of all. And then the next one was called The Mind Body Prescription from Dr. John Sarno.
Hmm.
And both those books created an unbelievable awareness that the mind controls everything. And if you're
Yeah.
putting too much negative thought into your mind, it's like a scale there. And if you're loading up one side with the negative, the other side, you get to decide how much positive thinking are you going to do. Are you going to give any positive thought? Because if you're not, your scale is going to be so far to whack on the negative. Guess what? You've produced all these negative chemicals in your body
Mm-hmm.
from a flight or fight response to where you're always in this state of tension and worry, which create and keeps these negative chemicals constantly circulating in your system.
Gotcha.
And sooner or later, you're going to have a boiling over. You're going to have a breaking point. You're going to develop a disease. You're going to develop chronic pain. You're going to, everyone thinks that these chronic conditions come out of a result of an accident. Oh, I hurt myself. Well, those things can happen, but those are not chronic. Okay. You can hurt yourself. I broke my leg.
Mm-hmm.
Those things heal right back together.
Right.
Your femur, you can snap it in half. And as long as you take care of it and probably put a cast on or just keep your weight off of it, your body knows how to heal. It's going to heal that thing back together.
Right.
But when it becomes chronic, the reason it's chronic, in other words, it won't heal and the pain doesn't go away, is because you've clouded it. You've gotten in the way of it, and your mind has produced this, and it's going to hold on to it.
Mm-hmm.
And most people do not get it. They do not realize it. So it took me a long time of suffering to finally come to that realization
Mm-hmm.
that the mind is both, it's both the initiator and the healer. And you get to choose which one you're going to have it be.
You are absolutely blowing my brain right now as I'm sitting here feeling the pain in the back of my neck that I've had for years. It's like, oh, okay, it's my thinking.
You're
I
going to get
use
out of that because the pain in the neck, there is a feeling, an emotional trigger for every condition that we have in our body. And so I would encourage you to read the book Feelings Buried Alive Never Die.
okay.
And you'll find that there is a corresponding emotion for every physical sensation or symptom that you might have. And there's an app out there too that you should get. It's again Carol K. Truman, Truman, Healing's Feelings app. So if you were going to say, all right, my neck hurts, I'm gonna immediately want to check and see what emotions contributed to that. Now you have to go back to the start. When did you realize your neck started hurting, and what was going on in your life at that point in time?
Mm,
So you have to think emotionally, not physically. So
gotcha.
we're trained to think physically. You're trained to think, yeah, I was in a car accident, or yeah, I fell down the stairs, and so you're thinking that's what did it. Remember
Mhm.
what I said, your body heals. You
Right.
don't stay in that state of pain perpetually. Your body
Right.
knows how to heal. Why it's not healing is here's the reasons for neck pain. You're you want to let feelings out, but you don't dare.
Mhm.
You have an inflexible state of mind.
Okay.
You're not wanting to yield to opinions that you think are wrong, and you're not accepting of others. So there's something maybe that you can consider linked back to that. And then once you've
Yeah.
accepted it wholly and just said, all right, that's what's going on. That's why. And now I accept it. And now you're not afraid of it anymore. Now you don't even think about it. So it's like a cut on your hand. You cut yourself. You don't sit there and look at it and worry, is that going to heal? Is that going to heal? You forget about it. And guess
Right.
what? It heals. So once you learn that you don't have to fear it and you don't need to think physically that there's
Mhm.
something wrong with you, it'll go away and it'll be amazing to you.
Yeah, it's interesting. That reminds me of a book I read once called The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Deborah Ford. Phenomenal book. And it talks about embracing these parts of you that you don't want to embrace, right? And the way she does it is like, for example, when someone is like is stubborn, right? Because I know that was one of the things you kind of alluded to in that chapter, unwilling to see others' perspectives, though I might think it was wrong, that stubbornness. If I can go look in a mirror and look myself in the eye and say, I am stubborn, I am stubborn, I am stubborn, and accept the fact that I'm a human and humans can be stubborn at times, once you fully embrace that, you can release it because it's just a part of the human experience. And that's
Mm,
what that reminds me of quite a bit. So that was cool.
mm, yeah.
So, so thank you for that. So
Nice.
Billy,
I'll write that down.
yeah, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers by Deborah Ford, phenomenal book. Um,
By the
so
way, the book I was telling you earlier,
Yes.
Nadine Burke Harris. It's called The Deepest Well.
The deepest well. Okay, cool. Super cool. Thanks. That's a good job on pulling and
Yeah.
remembering about it too. Um, so, Billy, I'm curious about some of the skills that you developed early on in this process, right? Your wife helped you realize that there was this validation you needed on the inside. What were some of the skills that you developed early on to help you realize that? And how have they developed and evolved over time up to this point in your life?
Well, once I healed from this chronic pain, and I don't know if people are listening. I know that there are going to be several listening to this who are
Mhm.
dealing with pain or who know people who are. And I was that I was that person who went to every surgeon, who went to every physical therapist, who did every possible physical conditioning or recommendation. I did all the MRIs. So ultimately I went to every physical kind of clinic or doctor or specialist that I could go to. I exhausted it. No one could make me better. No one could help me. Ultimately, I went to a rheumatologist who said, "You have an incurable autoimmune disease. You're never going to get better." But I was almost relieved because she said, "Here's why." And she had a blood test. Of course, I had so many blood tests.
Hmm.
You have this marker for this disease called ankylosing spondylitis,
Hmm.
right? So I accepted that as if the Lord told me that himself. I was 100% in agreement
Hmm.
that I had this disease. And come to find out after going for a few more years and learning more about mind body
Hmm.
that we've all been kind of preconditioned to believe that everything's physical and we break down and we're all going to need whatever it is in these doctors and we're going to have to be on these pharmaceutical drugs for the rest of our lives. So I agreed with it. I accepted it. And it took me a long time to kind of change my thinking and to get to this place where I thought maybe I can get better. Maybe I'm going to refute everything I've been told
Hmm.
and I'm going to say, no, to heck with that. I'm going to get better.
That's cool.
And I started looking around at others and doing all sorts of research. And I was on Facebook and I joined this group that's only for this group of people who suffer from ankylosing spondylitis. And there are millions of them out there, by the way, but
Hmm.
they're on Facebook and well, there's a big group of them.
Hmm.
And I started to listening and reading what they all said and all these symptoms that they're all dealing with and losing their mobility and tremendous shaking in their hands, unable to
Hmm.
walk, unable to sit, unable to sleep. As I'm reading this, I'm just accepting it. So subconsciously, I'm accepting this. And guess what happens? Within a week, all of those symptoms inf- affected me, every one of them, because I'm agreeing with this Facebook thing. So I'm kind
Yeah.
of giving this roundabout kind of where I was in my life
Hmm.
and how hard it was for me to refute all that and then start over. Because I'm thinking I have this disease, all these things are going to happen. So your mind, remember, your mind will do what you tell it. And if I'm burying that and believing it 100%, I stuff that into my subconscious mind. That's what it will tell my body to do. So fast forward, I'm reading a lot of these Dr. Sarno books. I start to find other doctors who are saying, no, it's this condition called TMS, which stands for tension myoneural syndrome, which
Okay.
is 100% curable and it's not dangerous. And I'm
Okay.
starting to read that and I'm going, wait a minute. Tell me more about this.
Hmm.
And that's what Dr. Sarno coined is all these conditions that are symptom related that are created by the negative emotions that we feed into our mind.
Hmm.
And there could be all kinds of them from stomach disorders, IBS, you have
Yeah.
it's how many people have that, but the chronic pain sufferers out there, I want you to know that you have hope and you don't need to keep going down the rabbit hole of exploring more traditional medical treatment. Um, I found that the answers can be um, there's a lot of things that you can do. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that you shouldn't try to be healthy and eat right and all those things, right? But the biggest thing I found is that when I changed my thinking and I stopped being so uptight and I just started taking time to breathe during the day and
Hmm.
relax and say, I'm okay. And I'm not going to let that person who I disagreed with, who I might have I felt like my old self would say, they don't like me. I
Yeah.
said, I'm not going to let that person destroy my health because I want to be physically healthy. I want to feel good. And so the way I perceive it changed. And when I started to change the way I'm perceiving, the way I'm accepting, and I'm just accepting who I am and I'm doing the best I can, but I'm not going to get all caught up in the worry. I started to realize that 90% of the things I was worrying about didn't even come to pass anyway.
Gotcha.
Uh, Living in the future, living in the past, never being present.
That's really cool. I really love that. And it's so true, right? That our anxiety prepares way more hypothetical situations that'll never actually happen. I'm curious, this skill of like meeting yourself or meeting that, and you said like I saw this part of me, right, that was thinking all these things and I wouldn't let him take the front seat, putting it in my own words. How did you develop that skill? What was that like early on? How does that apply in your life now?
I told you earlier, I grew up on a farm, on a
Uh,
ranch, and, it was the cowboys. And
yeah.
so when you talk about things like feelings, that gets kind of soft. You're not going to go out there and talk about that with a group of cowboys. You're not going to talk about meditation or getting in touch with your inner self. I mean, that's just like you might as well set yourself up for a big butt whipping if you're going to do that. But what I really came to understand more and more over the years was I have to witness myself. So I
Mm,
almost like become an observer of my own thinking and
mhm,
my own reactions because I'm so caught up in the program
mhm,
of doing what I always do that I don't realize what I'm doing or what I'm thinking. It's just programmed into me. So I think it's normal. But when I started to pull myself back and start getting present, then I could see that I was becoming negative or I was angry about something or I was upset in some way, shape, or form, stewing on it, worrying about a future event or a past event.
mhm.
So that's just the fear and the worry tugging back and forth, and it never allows you to stay right here in the moment. And so I started to try to find things that kept me present. What's going to do that? Little activities that you enjoy. So
Mhm.
doing crafts or doing some skill. So I started to do more like little building, working with my hands. I was big into running a lot. Sometimes running it allows you to drift, your mind to start drifting away. So I really
Yeah.
wanted to get present. And then one day I'm running with my wife up here in the trails here in Fernwood Trail up here in the Wasatch Front. And I see some guys riding some horses. And, I spent my whole childhood, a lot of big part of my life with horses, but then I got
Yeah.
into my financial planning career
Yeah.
and with my business and everything. I didn't have time for horses. And I didn't own or didn't get on a horse for probably, oh, it's scary to think, but probably 25 years.
Wow.
And I saw these guys and these horses, and we're running and they're riding the horses. And I stopped and I was just watching them. And Heather said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I know what I need to do." And this is when I'm kind of dealing with all these diseases, chronic pain. I had acid reflux, GERD,
Hmm.
all these things that I was told I'll never be able to get cured from. And I said, I need to get back to my roots. I need to get
Hmm.
back to the things that I find peace with and enjoy doing. And so we decided she was all in with that. She said, let's do it. So we bought a couple horses. We built a barn. We just started from scratch and we put our heart into it. We built this ranch and started getting more and more horses. Now I'm riding a lot. I rope a lot and we raise horses. We raise babies, send them all over the place to run.
That's
And
cool.
it just gives me that kind of that avenue where I can enjoy something.
Mhm.
without all the pressure of work life.
Mm.
And I think there's a big part of all of us that wants to find that balance. No
Yeah.
matter what kind of person you are, you could be driven to succeed, but if you're going to just push yourself all the time, I think you're going to find, like I did, that you're going to suffer some kind of health consequence eventually. And it
Yeah.
could come in many forms, many, many forms. Health, these are all interrelated according to Sarno. Every disease has an emotional root cause.
Mhm.
And I believe that. And most people are going to say no, they don't believe that because they think it's a genetic thing. Well, I can tell you right now, there's so many studies that will refute that it's
Mhm.
not genetic. The studies show that it's your lifestyle choices, it's your thinking. So if you are led to be a worrier, if for mom and dad, or maybe just mom, and you kind of develop that, you watch her worry, you all of a sudden look at life as a scary place all the time, and you always need to be
Yeah.
worrying for what might happen, you're going to develop the same kind of outcomes from a health standpoint. Also, it's what you put into your subconscious. So if you say, mom and my grandma and my uncles all had cancer, and you bury that in your mind, I'm likely going to get cancer. You probably will because you put that in your head.
Yeah.
And like I said, if you don't believe this stuff, then do no more than go look at placebo and nocebo and study those two concepts because people have been cured from stage 4 cancer by nothing more than a placebo. Now, tell me how that works. And I'm not just talking about one person, I'm talking about hundreds and thousands of people who have been in studies for cancer drugs who were told they were given a drug and they were given nothing more than a sugar pill and they were cured from cancer. How is that possible? Because the mind says, I'm cured. Boom. Now
You know,
the opposite can happen if you tell yourself negative. If you tell yourself something that's going to happen that's bad and you believe it, 100% believe it, then that bad thing will come true. So we need to spend way more time studying the mind, all these things like the placebo and nocebo, than we do studying what drugs we should be taking,
100%.
right?
100%. There's a, like, as you were talking and you're talking about all these studies, there's this book called The Body Keeps the Score.
Yes.
Yes,
Great book.
very similar to Feelings Buried Alive, Never Die, guys. So Billy is speaking so much truth about your mind, right? So Billy, we're running out of time here, so I definitely want to get through the rest of the questions with you. So looking back on your story, Billy, from being left at 3 years old in the hospital, from being ridiculed by your friends, from all the injuries being a jockey, from the struggles that your wife helped you see, all the shame, all the pain, all the hardships that you've struggled throughout your life. What can you appreciate about your journey up to this point?
I'm so proud the fact that I found my way across that river and I didn't need to do it with any sort of lifelong attachment of, or being in a trap to what I consider faulty medical advice. I mean, I have empathy for doctors because they don't know this type of path that people can actually become healed. They can heal from all of these conditions. They're led to believe and they're led to tell their patients
Hmm.
that there's only one way and the body and the mind are separate and they only want to treat the body. They're only looking at the symptoms. So it's 100% daily routine of symptom management. They just keep putting band-aids on it or keep putting drugs on it or prescribe more or less or change drugs. And they don't ever understand or come to a place that they can get comfortable with. What if we could heal on this without all that? Because they're not taught that. And I'm going to tell you why. It's all money. It's
It's it.
driven by money. It's greed and it's corruption of the pharmaceutical industry. It wasn't always this way, guys. It wasn't always this way. Let me give you a quick, I know we're coming on up the end of the
No, you're
show.
good. Let's hear it.
So back in 18, I have this in my book, but back in 1891, according to Sir Mwitty Herbs, there were only 7 known diseases. 7, 1891. And there were only 12 medicines for those diseases. And they were all made from plants.
Oh boy.
Okay, now fast forward 120 years later,
Oh boy. Here we
we
go.
have over 10,000 registered diseases. and new ones coming up every single day. Now we have
What?
561,000 patented pharmaceutical drugs. Now you just need to have a little bit of a suspicious mind to look at that in a curious light and say, how and why did that happen? Now, the medical community will tell you, oh, it's because we're able to study things better and we're able to find these diseases because we have better testing, laboratories, all this stuff. Okay, now I'm going to refute that real quick because I'm going to say you're telling us that all these 10,000 plus diseases were there all along, and the only way we survived into this 21st century is because uh, your drugs were able to be developed along the way. This is one of those, you have to stop and think, what's going on? Where's the conflict of interest? Now, let me give you that just a one comment on the counter side is there are a lot of drugs that have been life saving, and I
100%.
don't want to throw everything out the window.
No,
Okay,
no,
because there's
absolutely
a
not.
lot of great things that doctors and surgeons have been able to do when your life is on the line, when you're in danger, when you're in an accident, when you've been shot, when you've been stabbed, when you break a bone. They are potentially life saving. And
Right.
I love them for that, of what they've been able to do and some of these drugs that we need in these moments, right? Like that. But all the other ones that are trying to find an answer, and they've come up with a new name and they give it a new name, and now it's a new disease. And once you've been labeled with the new disease, it's there forever
And
for
there's a
most
lot of
people.
money in it. There's a lot of money in it.
Tons of money in it.
And it's I agree with you wholeheartedly, right? So kind of my day-to-day job, I do red light therapy. And what I tell people is red light therapy is not going to heal your compound fracture, right? So there are doctors, like you said, there are doctors that are great doing great things. There are also those doctors that are prescribing medications to make a buck, and that kind of stuff's terrible. And I'm also a Christian, God-fearing man,
Yeah.
and I firmly believe that, and they teach about this in Christian theology that, and I don't know your religious purview. We definitely don't have.
100% with you on that.
Yeah,
Yep.
God put everything on this earth for our betterment, right? Everything to help us, to heal us, to make us better. And a lot of these man-made pharmaceutical put in a factory types of things with hundreds of side effects, don't think we need them personally, right?
No, we don't need them,
No,
but we've been led to believe that we do.
there's an alternate holistic option for pretty much anything at this point. It just takes that, like you said, that curious mind to start looking.
Yeah.
I love
And,
it.
big thing is just to step back and look at things and why things developed. Don't look at the poor physical symptom. Look at why and what was going on in my life. And when I started to
Yeah.
examine all those things, I mean, all these things I was taking prescription drugs for is gone. So I'm so proud of being able to pass it to my kids and to teach them. And we've already taught them so many things that you don't need to run to the doctor. Okay. When you have a headache, and these are the things that are going to change their lives in the future.
Right.
That's what I'm most proud of. I suffered for 7 years beyond belief of how torturous this back pain was for me. All kinds of different doctors and different answers. MRIs. Oh yeah, you have all these microfractures from when you were a jockey. Band, it's catching up to you. Oh, poor me, I was a jockey. Now I'm gonna suffer for the rest of my life. I believe that. Then I believe the condition I needed surgery. You have these slip discs. We need to go in there and fix that. Oh, well, instead of surgery, I decided I was going to try this different route. Then I went to the rheumatologist who told me, nope, incurable autoimmune disease. You're going to need to be taking these shots for the rest of your life. So I started taking Enbrel, Humira, helped for about 3, 6 months,
Mhm.
again, placebo effect.
Right.
And then it stopped helping. And then I was in pain worse than ever.
Ah,
And so you just have to start coming to the realization that your body knows how to heal. Your mind, if you can slow it down enough and you can connect with the universe and you can just connect with that higher power and you understand that there's so much corruption in this world, faulty medical advice. I'm such a passionate person about it after I went through what I went through. That's why I have a third of my book dedicated to it. And your work, you're doing a heck of a good job, Chase. I really think more people need to get this out there so people quit relying so much on that point of view. And I will
Yeah,
say Robert F. Kennedy Jr., you can be a fan or not, but his approach to the medical field, I really think could open the door for a lot of people. I really think he has something going.
that's cool. Okay, yeah, that's awesome. Dude, thank you, Billy. Thank you so much for all your knowledge and your education. I've got one more question for you, my main question. So for those just getting into the realm of mental health, those just realizing that they need help, right? And they're coming on your podcast. What advice do you have for those people?
Stop before you move forward. Consider the emotional aspect. 1000%. I can't tell you this and stress this enough. Please, please consider what the emotion was contributing to your current situation, whether that's a physical condition or even an emotional. You could have anxiety or depression. All those things come from the same kind of place,
Yeah,
which is in your mind of what you are holding on to and what you're focusing all your attention on. You might not realize it. You've got to find ways to step back and look at yourself and be the
yeah,
observer instead of the doer. Observe yourself and look and think differently. We knew all this stuff hundreds of years ago. Doctors knew this stuff. They knew when you had a condition, a stomach ache, a problem, a headache, they knew that you needed to just, hey, you need to relax. You need to find ways to relax. They were able to treat people. They weren't in it for the money.
right.
Okay. So be suspicious when you're told you need surgery, when you're told you need to go in and have a new hip or a new knee and all these things. I can show you any number of studies from people who have found that to be faulty advice, and all sorts of studies that found that people that are suffering from knee pain, for example, they did studies after study, and hundreds of people who had no knee pain, but the MRI's images showed all sorts of problems. So the MRI uh, professionals, the folks looking at those, could not differentiate between the ones without pain and the ones with pain. And according to Sarno, we're all going to have these normal abnormalities develop,
Mhm.
like gray hair, wrinkles. All of us have this. Your cartilage is going to kind of start deteriorating a little bit. But they look at an MRI, well, bone on bone, you better have a whole new knee put in. But why don't you try this other route before you could do that? Okay. Try this route that looks at the emotional condition and heal yourself. And you're going to have your pain gone and you're going to be amazed. And once you realize that you are the healer yourself, then your life opens up in a whole different way.
Love it. Absolutely love it. 100% true. Billy, thank you. Thank you so much for your advice, your vulnerability, your story. You were truly one of my favorite episodes that I've had the opportunity to have in my first year of filming it. It's been an honor.
Appreciate it, Chase.
Yeah, of course. So
Likewise.
thank you, man. So where can people find you? Right? Like people are wanting your financial services, your mental health services. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. Where can people find you?
You can find me on our website, petersonws.com. So we're Peterson Wealth Services. As I mentioned, we are here locally in South Ogden, Utah, manage money for clients all over the country, registered in all the states. And with regard to my book, you can find that on Amazon, on all the major platforms. You buy books, Barnes and Noble, wherever you want to go. I also have a podcast, Chase, and I'm going to have you on mine
Well,
here soon.
sounds
It's
great.
called Harnessing Your Wealth. And I've had multiple shows with the mind body issues. I don't
Mhm.
just talk about financial stuff because finance and health and so your wealth, health, and your happiness are so interconnected. You can have all the money in the world, but if your health is gone,
Mhm.
you don't care about your money. So I really want people to understand that this is a triangle, a triad, if you will. And we can have all three if you really look at it differently. Okay. And
Yeah,
so
cool.
I really love that. My book is out there. You can find us on social media, Peterson Wealth Services, and then you can follow us on our podcast on any of the platforms, Harnessing Your Wealth.
Harnessing your wealth. Cool, guys. And all of that information is going to be in the description as well. So Make sure to go down there and check it out. Buy Billy's book. Obviously, if he's willing to share in 1 hour all of the wealth and all of the love that he did today, just imagine all of the gold that's going to be in his book. So make sure to check that out. And everyone, if you've tuned into this point, me and Billy are so incredibly appreciative of you for tuning in. Thank you so much. It means the world to us to have your support, to hear his story, to hear his lessons, to learn the resilience, to get that hope to cope for the weekend, guys. It means the world. Billy, one last time, thank you so much for being on, my friend. I really, really appreciate it. I feel very close. I feel very connected to you as brothers, and I'm just really grateful for the opportunity that we've had today.
Yep. Thank you so much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Now, guys, thank you for tuning in. That's the episode. So last few things, guys. Again, if my two big favors of you, if you haven't hit that subscribe button or that follow button already, obviously you need to at this point. Billy is just one of the many, many episodes we've had. All of them are powerful. Billy's is great. All of them are powerful. So please make sure to hit that subscribe or that follow button. And if you haven't shared it already, I know there's someone in your life that's struggling mentally that Billy's lessons could benefit. So please, please, please share it with them. Guys, now, just so you know, I am always looking for new guests to come on my show. We are all about celebrating humanity. Please understand that no story is too big, no name is too small. If you do have a story, I want to share it all. Please contact me at chase@thewellnesscenter.life. One more time, that's chase@thewellnesscenter.life to get you scheduled to come on my show and share your story. Guys, if you want to know more about what I'm doing on my day-to-day basis, please go to www.thewellnesscenter.life, where red light therapy rejuvenates and recalibrates every single cell in your body, one session at a time. Thank you so much for tuning in. We both hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will see you on the flip side. Peace out.